It turns out billionaires, politicians, and economists really have just been gaslighting us for the last 3 years. Yesterday, an explosive economics report was released by a think tank out of DC confirming what you and I and everyday Americans have been screaming from the rooftops for the past 3 years. That these record high price increases that we've experienced in everything from gasoline, lumber, poultry, eggs, and diapers haven't actually been being driven up by necessity, supply chain issues, COVID recovery, or labor shortages. No. It turns out that 53% of all price increases that have quite literally bankrupted middle America have now in fact been confirmed to have been driven by one singular thing: billionaire corporate greed and their record and relentless pursuit of profits. It's as vulgar as it sounds, and I'm sorry to say the outlook doesn't look good. But let's get into this and talk about how we can still fight back and protect our households, our income, and our economy. Let's get into it. Since the start of 2020, the working and middle class of America have experienced the largest strip mining and transfer of wealth from the everyday American to billionaires that has ever been experienced in our nation's history. We've experienced relentless increases on prices on everything from diapers going up 184%. to 70% increases in the prices of chicken and poultry and eggs. And despite ever-increasing record profits continuing to be reported as everyday Americans continue to deplete their savings just trying to survive, 67% of Wall Street and political insider economists that have been giving testimony before Congress and quoting for the record in the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg have consistently stated over and over again, no, price increases haven't been driven by corporate greed. It's a nuanced issue related to supply chain and labor demands and squeeze in the economy. But why? Why have they been saying that? Well, their jobs depend on it. As a result, it's become a widely adopted narrative that companies and consumers have been sharing in the pain of record inflation and post-COVID recovery pains. But in reality, what we've witnessed is a corporate environment where the majority of all SEC filings are reporting record profitability with record stock buybacks and record dividend payouts, while CEOs are experiencing record bonus structures tied to the performance of those stocks. At the exact same time that they're paying out 50% increases in profitability, they're increasing prices between 50% and yes, you're reading that right, 111,000% in the increases of prices on goods we need just to survive. And in light of these recent reports, we've reached a point where even the coziest political and Wall Street insiders have no choice but to admit that it's become obvious corporations are passing along any form of short-term struggling that they have onto consumers, and they're continuing to serve the wealthiest 1%, while nobody is passing along anything to help those in need of fair wages or products that are affordable just to survive. The newest analysis is showing that companies' profit growth is far outpacing worker wages while increasing the cost of living to unsustainable numbers. Let's take a look. Now, I want to remind you that this is profits after they've paid out everything. This is the money they're keeping at the end of the day and passing along to their shareholders, okay? What we're seeing here is the percentage increase in profitability they've experienced in the last 3 years compared to worker wages. What you're seeing here is commodities like steel and building materials that are driving up housing costs, experiencing 809% growth, okay? Albertsons food and groceries, profitability experiencing 671% increases, okay? PulteGroup Homes, 97% increases. Chevron, 144% increases. Consumer goods that we need to survive, 14% increases. Hershey, which has a monopoly on almost all candy products, 62% increases. Meanwhile, the median company, just every company in America, 49% increases of profits, while everyday workers' wages right here experience 1.6% increases from quarter 1 2020 to quarter 1 2022. All right, so what we're seeing is the real-time strip mining of any available wealth that was left to build or sustain a middle class to the hands and pockets of a handful of billionaires that control pretty much everything that controls us. Now, for the past 40 years, the percentage of price increases that was accounted for by corporate profitability had been almost perfectly stable at about 11%. That means for every dollar that a price on an item went up, only about 11 cents of that was related to profits that were passed on to shareholders. But the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and a few supply chain issues created a perfect smokescreen for corporate executives to hide the real reasoning behind price increases and to kind of work together and collude with one another to create a mass increase in the cost of almost everything while passing on nothing to their employees. While the report on 2023 is showing 53% increases related to profitability, even in 2022 when we were just coming out of the pandemic, new data shows that 35% of all price increases were being pushed up due to just corporate profitability, which was then the highest level since 1950, a number we have far exceeded in this year. These bullet points are taken from calls between CEOs or CFOs and the shareholders of these major companies that have experienced these price increases. That one at the top is actually Chevron, where our gas prices have increased by almost double, stating that they've experienced record profitability greater than the company has ever seen, prompting dividend increases. And then they assured all of their shareholders they would keep production low to maintain high prices, meaning they could increase production and make things affordable for us. But why would we do that when we can keep giving more money to billionaires? I wish we could say it stops with them, but Steel Dynamics says the exact same thing, that they weren't materially affected by inflation and that their higher prices exceeded increased supply chain costs, so they're benefiting in record ways they never could have imagined. A couple of the biggest outward signs of this corporate greed are the massive increase in stock buybacks we experience. Now, if you don't know what that means, that's where a company takes their extra cash and instead of reinvesting it in their employees or in expansion or better products or passing along savings to consumers, they use it to buy their own stock to artificially inflate the price so that the dividend payouts get higher for their shareholders, thereby increasing additional demand for their stock and continuing the cycle while passing along nothing to their employees or their consumers. One of the worst examples we had this year, I'm sorry to say, is Mattel, who saw huge benefits coming off of Barbenheimer. Okay, their quarterly profit growth was up 111,000%, and they used it to do $9 billion in stock buybacks while not increasing employee wages almost at all. If you look here, you're going to see huge percentages in increases in profitability in lots of commodities, which is really what's partially responsible for driving up the home prices and the out-of-control housing costs. Over here, you're going to see record stock buybacks, okay, from those exact same companies like timber companies and steel companies and Caterpillar, who experienced a 958% increase and managed to do $5 billion in stock buybacks. Nobody is passing along the savings or increasing the wages of their employees. So it's creating a cycle of reinvesting in billionaires, siphoning money away from the economy to the hands of just a handful of people while leaving everybody else struggling for oxygen and pushed out of the middle class. At the heart of all of this is a problem that's been building since really the 1930s, when the last round of antitrust busting kind of reformed the American economy. And ever since then, consolidation has slowly been increasing. And what we've got now are cartels running almost every industry that we have, where a handful of companies own 90% of what we have to buy. Contributing to home prices, you can look at Lennar and Pulte Group, two of the largest home builders in the United States, who outright said on their investor call, we could sell another 1,000 homes in the quarter if we wanted to without effort. It just doesn't make sense to do that because by not offering those homes, they're artificially inflating prices, keeping their profits up 78 to 97%. Economists are finally pointing it out. Those who have market power can raise prices above what's fair market value. Fair market isn't working anymore. The influence of consolidation is pervasive. Kimberly-Clark controls 70% of the diaper market. Do you think it's a coincidence that diaper prices have increased 184% despite their costs actually decreasing by 25% in the last year and a half? Tyson Foods is another great example of a monopoly that was already experiencing record profitability, still hiked their prices 19.6%, and when they weren't happy with that profitability, shut down 4 plants, killed thousands of jobs just so they could increase demand and hike their prices another 24% through artificial scarcity. We need the FTC to act, and we have to decide who we want to be as a country. Are we okay with this? If you're new here, my name is Tiffany. We work together to fight private equity, mega corporations, and to save small businesses in our community. I'm going to do some more deep dives on this, so stick around because we are so glad you're here.